Right, I've been asked to sort of wrap things up with my, just reflections and closing remarks for the day. I go to this first slide. One of the things that strikes me since joining CSEP is how interconnected the sectors are, and it was something that that Sharon Todd from the fine chemical sector talked about with a great deal of passion. And what we see here in the yellow and green boxes, we find the medium to high growth sectors with high GVAs per hour worked that have endured over the past 25 years in the UK economy. Some sectors, such as insurance and information services, have grown at a greater rate than the economy as a whole, while others, like the manufacturing sector, have grown at a lower rate and actually have shrunk in terms of their importance to the UK economy. What we can do is arrange these sectors in the form of supply chains, from their raw materials right through to their final value-added products that are shipped to customers. In the physical world, we ship out via trucks, planes, and ships, whereas in the increasingly important virtual world, we ship our data in and out via telecoms and space. And these supply chains are supported by other sectors. The physical supply chains require support from energy, water, sewage, recycling industries, and also they require the support of civil engineering, and we're here at the Institution of Civil Engineers, so we had to talk about them, to build all the infrastructure that's needed. The virtual supply chains are requiring increasing support in terms of secure digital and AI systems where we started our day-to-day. And also in the future, cyber-physical systems such as the autonomous cars that we started to talk about are going to require this security support as well, as the physical world and the virtual world actually become more integrated together. The sectors in the green boxes are those that CSEP is currently studying, and the yellow boxes are those that are to come. However, we're conscious that this analysis, based on ONS data, is based upon the SIC code structure, and it can miss certain sectors, such as the hidden gem of health tech that we heard about today. That's the reason for the Menti question. Are there sectors that we're missing? We were basically asking you to tell us. What's worrying is the red boxes. They're problematic for the resilience of our supply chains. And again, this came up in the discussion around fine chemicals. These red box sectors represent shrinking or low GVA per hour work sectors, yet they are critical in supporting our high growth sectors. They represent a dilemma for us. Should we make or buy the outputs from these sectors? Or what can we do to attract these sectors back to the country? In this respect, energy prices will be one of the main challenges. UK industry pays some of the highest electricity prices in the world. There's only Ireland that beats us. This is a huge comparative disadvantage for the country. And on a GVA basis, the energy sector has outperformed the UK economy as a whole over the past 25 years due to the prices. However, it's done so at the expense of the manufacturing sectors, and especially the more energy-intense prime material producers and fine chemicals, as we heard today. The drive for net zero and the elimination of fossil fuels will also exacerbate the raw material supply pressures on our manufacturing sectors. Our current hydrocarbon refineries disappear in a zero fossil fuel world. We need to find net zero versions of our hydrocarbons in the future, and technology breakthroughs needed here. Alternatively, we will need to look at preserving some fossil fuel-based hydrocarbon production to produce the raw materials until such a solution is found to feed those fine chemical sectors. What's interesting is the number 1 and the number 2 and the number 3 GVA per hour work sectors are in the hydrocarbon space, the hydrocarbon refineries. What I've also picked up today is how different sectors can learn from one another, and that's certainly it's come out in the discussion and in the coffee breaks and lunch breaks. So we've seen how sectors can learn from one another. I think the accelerator and export approaches from the semiconductor sector can certainly be applied to other sectors. I've heard that going around today. What also struck me as quite interesting is the way that Mark Higson from Vertical Aerospace highlighted his key IP was in very, very energy efficient electric motors and lightweight batteries. And we heard from the automotive sector how we needed to reduce the weight of EVs by working together, is there a solution there? Can these sectors learn from one another? And also, from Mark's perspective, what he's going to be building will look like in the interior of a car. So how can he learn from the car industry as well? So there's opportunities there. Also, we might ask what the automotive sector can learn from the tech sector, as you know, in terms of disruption, and SDVs become the future. So the semiconductor industry regularly goes through disruptions. So what can we learn from that, and how can we apply that to automotive? And I think finally, SDV and autonomous vehicles are cyber-physical systems that are the next growth frontier for the cybersecurity sector. So how can these sectors work together to create global leadership? Finally, what you see, I think, is some cross-cutting themes across all the sectors that we've looked at. And I've added the data centers one here that we haven't spoken about, but we've just issued a report on it. And you see the emergence of these cross-cutting themes. So high electricity prices are going to challenge the UK's ability to make sustainable aircraft fuel and hydrogen in the aerospace sector. The price of those products is directly proportional to the electricity price. It's also challenging the fine chemical sector, as we've heard. And it can also challenge the energy-hungry data centers that are subject to many of our recent investment announcements in the UK. So the question is, can tidal help to supply more and lower-cost zero-carbon electricity going forward? Regulatory simplification has begun to be addressed in the health tech sector, and it's also needed in fine chemicals. And we heard a lot from Lord Willits about how we're progressing in that area. And I think an exciting prospect that comes out of this, we heard it in aerospace with vertical aerospaces, and also in the idea of creating regulatory sandboxes in which we can experiment with new things. How can we think about regulation as a source of competitive advantage? What can the regulatory authorities do to provide a comparative advantage for UK companies so that they can have a competitive advantage because they have regulatory certainty in some of these new and emerging sectors? Manufacturing also helps us to continue to build our skills and capabilities, and it's through this practice that we learn to innovate. We must not neglect, I think, the attraction of children to STEM subjects in schools and pay more attention to the future technician population and celebrate manufacturing if we're going to continue to grow. We also urgently need to grow new skills in the fast-growing area of cybersecurity, which is becoming of critical importance to us. Financing is also a recurring theme, and the lack of funds needed to scale and the required technical skills to manage and direct such funds requires attention. And the UK underperforms relative to the US in this respect, and it's a subject that we've heard over and over again in the various sector sessions that we need to address. So you may also have observations as well, common things that you saw, and I'll be very interested in hearing those from you, other things that I may have missed and others may have missed. So we're going to wrap it up now, and I'll invite you all to, I think it's in the room that we were in for lunch and for the coffee break, where we'll have time to network and discuss further. So I invite you all to join us there. Thank you. One last thing before I go, by the way, I have a few people to thank. I forgot that. Firstly, there's Joe and Cam, Ollie, Anna, Christina, and George for supporting the organisation of this event, and also to Katie, and also to Katie and Meredith from our events team who have helped pull all of this together as well. Also, I'd like to thank the wider CSEP team, Rupert, James, Bob, Eric, Jimmy, Thomas, Dame Vivian, and for all of your support in this. And of course, I'd like to thank all of our speakers and panelists. We couldn't have done this without you, so many, many thanks for that. Also, I'd like to thank the Institution of Civil Engineers for agreeing to host us here, and also for the support of all of their staff that they've provided to us. And finally, I'd like to thank you as the audience for your interest and engagement in the important subject of accelerating growth in the UK economy. And then finally, to Lord Sainsbury, thank you for making CSEP possible.